Planning Commission, please come to order. Ms. Ramsey, would you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Rich?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Balance?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Coppinger?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Graham?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Volkert?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Gay? Commissioner Warren?
Ma'am.
Commissioner Madison? Commissioner Houston? Chair Runner?
Yes, ma'am. Everyone's had a chance to review the summary minutes of the October 18th meeting. Are there any corrections to those minutes? No corrections? Then I'd ask for a motion, please.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, ma'am.
Commissioner Rich?
Abstain.
Commissioner Vitale?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Balance?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Coppinger? Commissioner Graham?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Volkert? Commissioner Warren?
Ma'am.
Chair Runner?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Runner, I request that you order that the Warren County zoning ordinance subdivision regulations and the comprehensive plan with all of its elements effective November 1st, 2018 be introduced as exhibits for tonight's hearings. Further request that you order that the staff reports, all attachments, together with the commission's file for each application be introduced as exhibits. And finally, I'd ask that Ben Peterson, Executive Director, Rachel Hurt, Planner, be sworn as witnesses before you and that their oath and qualifications, and Monica Ramsey, Planner, be sworn as witnesses before you and that their oath and qualifications be reflected in the record for each hearing.
So ordered. Do you swear to tell the truth before this commission? Thank you all. Any questions, commissioners, on the subdivision and approvals in the packet? No questions. Letters of credit and performance bond, there's one item. Any question? No questions? Then I'd ask for a motion. So moved. Thank you.
Commissioner Rich?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Balance?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Clark? Commissioner Coppinger? Commissioner Graham?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Volkert? Commissioner Warren?
Ma'am.
Chair Runner?
Yes, ma'am. We do not have any unfinished business, so that brings us to the public hearing. First item tonight, 2018-53Z County, Southside Development LLC and Mary Louise Smith Family Limited Partnership Number 1 have filed an application to rezone a portion of a tract of land containing approximately 16.5912 acres located at 377 McLellan Road from agriculture to RS1C, which is single-family residential with a general development plan. We'll have the staff report from Ms. Hurt.
Thank you, Chairman Runner. We had a pre-application conference on August the 22nd for the portion of this property outlined in yellow. As you mentioned, it's roughly 16 acres, and the applicants are proposing to rezone the property to RS1C to develop a maximum of 42 single-family residential lots on the property. The current zoning is agriculture, and the future land use designation for the property is moderate density residential, which is this designation encourages areas developed for higher density single-family detached and attached development, as well as semi-detached multifamily development, including duplexes, townhouses, apartment buildings, condominiums, and mobile home parks. Densities in this designation should range between 3.5 and 13 dwelling units per acre. The existing use of the property is agriculture, and you can see that there are several single-family residential uses in the area, along with some remaining agricultural land. And then just to the north there's some industrial properties, which is part of the industrial park. This was the preliminary lot layout that was submitted with the application, and I'll reference that throughout the staff presentation this evening. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump on to page 2 of the staff report, which is our future land use map and category review. Staff evaluated 21 items from the comprehensive plan. We found that 3 of those were clearly in compliance. The majority of the items we felt that the Planning Commission should determine compliance with. And so I'll just touch on some of those here now. The first one is LU 113, which relates to compatibility. The Planning Commission should determine if the proposal is compatible with the area. LU2 and LU 2.1, we've also stated that the Planning Commission should determine if the proposal is a high-quality development that includes design standards tailored to preserve the character of the area. LU 2.1 relates to open space. The application does not comply with this item. This portion of the plan encourages increased open space within new developments, and there isn't any additional open space that's been proposed by the applicants at this time. LU 2.1.4, PR 1.7, and NCR 1.1.6 encourage preservation of our tree canopy. The applicants have committed to preserving the majority of the trees along the perimeter of the property, but they did not address the trees that were located central to the property, so we have suggested that the Planning Commission determine compliance with these items. The Planning Commission should also determine if the proposal is an opportunity for revitalization and redevelopment, and if it complies with LU 253. NCR 1.1 and NCR 1.3 deal with sinkholes and wetlands. The applicants did address the existing sinkhole in their development plan conditions. There is a wetland that's located on the property. According to our records, the applicants communicated to us that they thought this was an old farm pond and that it was no longer a wetland, but we did feel that you should determine compliance with those items. Another item worth mentioning, there is an existing home on the property that was constructed in 1929, and for that reason we have evaluated NCR 2.5 and NCR 2.5.3. Their proposal does not comply with these items because the existing historic home is not planned to be preserved and incorporated as part of the proposed development. The applicants, however, did make a commitment in their development plan conditions that prior to demolition of the existing residence, Habitat for Humanity Restore and/or other similar nonprofit organizations will have the opportunity to inspect the residence and remove any items which might be repurposed. And then moving on to HN1 and HN 1.3, the Planning Commission should determine if the proposed development is a compatible infill project that preserves or enhances the character of the area. And lastly, HN 2.1 and HN 4, the Planning Commission should determine if the location of the planned development is suitable for the proposed housing type and if the proposed residences will enhance the array of housing options available in the area. Under the site characteristics review, I'll just note, again, we're referencing the proposed layout here. There are connections proposed to existing stub streets along Cedar Trail Avenue, which would be this street here. And then also connection to McIntyre Street, which is located south of the property here. And if approved, the applicants have also agreed to provide stub connections to the remaining portion of the property to the west. So you can see there are also 3 additional stub streets proposed here. Regarding fire protection, this property is served by the Woodburn Fire Department, and the applicants have agreed to coordinate fire hydrant locations with the fire department in their development plan conditions. And then under our site design and compatibility review, we've noted that the density of surrounding subdivisions in the area ranges from 0.21 dwelling units per acre to 25.82 dwelling units per acre. The density of the proposed development is 2.53 dwelling units per acre. Under the building materials review, we've noted that the majority of the homes in the Greystone subdivision, which are the subdivision in this, I guess, kind of light blue color there. The majority of homes in that subdivision are vinyl. And then we've noted that the majority of homes in McLellan Farms, which is the subdivision that's adjacent, shown in purple, we've noted that the majority of those homes are either brick, stone, cement, siding, or other modern masonry material. At the bottom of page 4, we've referenced section 3.1.4 of the zoning ordinance, which outlines requirements for a traffic impact study. In consulting with both the Bowling Green Public Works Department and Warren County Public Works Department, the applicants have agreed to make necessary modifications to the existing roadways, which will connect to the development, and they have committed in their development plan conditions that the existing county and city roads would be improved with additional pavement overlays as required by both of the public works agencies. Then, moving along to page 5, the applicants supplied several development plan conditions with their application to help address compatibility with the area and compliance with other comprehensive plan items. Number 1 states that all utility lines will be located underground. Number 2 limits the maximum number of homes to 42. Number 3 outlines building materials for the proposed development and states that the property would be constructed, or each property would be constructed with a home containing at least 80% stone, brick, LP smart siding, EIFS or other cementitious or modern masonry materials. Plain face block is prohibited. Each residence shall have an attached 2-car garage and a minimum of 1,600 square feet of heated living space, exclusive of porches and garage. Number 4 states that the development would contain uniform street lighting. Number 5 outlines provisions for the stub streets to the remaining portion of the property that I referenced earlier. Number 6 outlines the requirements to improve the pavement overlays for surrounding streets as required by the Public Works Departments. Number 7, vehicular construction traffic to the property will be restricted to access via Cedar Trail Avenue, which again, that's this street that runs here off of McLellan Road. And then number 8 addresses preservation of existing trees around the perimeter property lines. Number 9 addresses sinkholes on the property. Number 10 states that the development would include sidewalks on both sides of the street. Number 11 outlines provisions for those nonprofit organizations to come in and repurpose any of the materials from the existing home before it's demolished. And then number 12 addresses fire hydrant spacing and coordination with the Woodburn Fire Department. And lastly, number 13 requires mandatory membership in a homeowners association for all properties. Staff has noted that the proposed development plan meets a majority of the review criteria for site design and compatibility. And with that, I'll finish up the staff report with our points to consider on page 1. The proposal is less dense than what is outlined in the moderate density future land use category. The Planning Commission should determine if the density that is proposed is appropriate in this location and compatible with the surrounding area. The proposed development complies with the majority of the site characteristics review criteria and also complies with the majority of the review criteria for site design and compatibility and meets the minimum requirements of the zoning ordinance. And lastly, we've just noted, which I stated previously, that the existing home on the property was constructed in 1929. I believe that is all for the staff report, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner, have any questions before we hear from the applicant?
Rachel, going back to page 2, proposal does not comply with LU 211, which encourage increase open space standards 30%. Does that wetland comply with that?
Well, the portion of the plan that this comes from, it encourages additional open space that's usable. So anything that would be in a drainage area or basin of that nature wouldn't necessarily be considered usable space. So that's why that was not in compliance.
Okay.
It's not uncommon. We've had other applications where that item was not in compliance.
Right.
But it looks like some of the lots may be a little bit larger than what the minimum lot size would be. So some of the lots may actually have a little bit more open space and a little bit more usable area than you might find just given the minimum lot size in the proposed zone.
Any other questions for Ms. Burke? Else? Thank you, ma'am, and we'll hear from the applicant.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Runner. My name's Kevin Brooks. I represent the applicant. We do not really have any additional information, but if you have questions, we'll do our best to answer them.
Thank you, sir. There's any questions?
I have a couple.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, have the applicants considered additional open space? Would they consider additional open space to be put in their design?
I'll invite the applicant up here if need be, but I don't think so. The site just really doesn't lend itself to it. So there's a big drainage area behind all those lots, and we could call that open space and do a little path down there, but I mean, frankly,
It wouldn't be usable.
folks, well, it would be accessible, but I bet it wouldn't be used.
Might mention
Yes.
one thing. It's not necessarily open space, but they have committed to sidewalks on both sides of all of the streets, and the zoning ordinance would only require one sidewalks on one side of the street, depending on the road classification. So that is a little bit more than what would typically be found.
There was a point in time when we counted that towards open space, I think, perhaps. I don't know when that's ended, but, yes, ma'am.
Tell me about
Yes, sir.
what's
Sorry.
numbered as 42 on the plat. Is that the
Yes.
drainage or retention basin? Okay. So you would have the option then to make the lot smaller and call part of this open space, or you could make the lots larger and let everyone have their own open space. And it seems like that's what
can.
you've chosen to do.
Yes, you can. And, I mean, I think the open space requirement just generally it has a usability component, but it also is kind of an aesthetic idea, and just a sort of what's the feel of the neighborhood. And this is not a real dense, decent-sized lots. It's bigger lots than we would have to have.
Alan, go ahead.
Just for information, what is LP smart siding? It's a term I've never seen before.
LP smart siding, Mr. Hammer could explain better than me, but I'll take a shot. It's actually a wood product. It's a wood composite product that is used widely in other areas, I think maybe in the Midwest, and my client has started to use it and really thinks it's superior to the cementitious products, maintenance-wise. Has a 50-year warranty, and it'll look, you wouldn't know it wasn't one of the other cementitious things unless you went up and touched it, probably.
Just for clarity, it's a competitor to Hardy Plank. For those of you who are familiar with Hardy Plank, it's LP's version of that, but they use a different composition for it.
But it's considered wood, correct?
Yes, it's a...
It's the thing we struggled with a few
Yeah.
weeks ago
It's a
Yes.
wood,
on Lanny Lowe.
yeah, it's a
Yes.
wood resin product, would be a better way to describe it, I think.
I said composite, but resin, I think, is the right word.
Is that it looks like a log cabin? Is that the type of,
No, if you're,
that's a different?
it would look very, very similar to what we commonly see here in Hardy Plank. It looks like that. It installs very similarly. So it's a wood product that can come in sheets, or it can come in individual pieces and gets nailed on. And it's made to look like old wood siding, but not have the maintenance associated with old wood siding.
Pretty good chance you have seen it and thought it was Hardy Plank in this town, yeah.
Just LP's version of a Hardy Plank, essentially.
Kevin, the only question I have is, do you think Barrett and them are stuck on the 1,600 square foot houses?
Barrett, you want me to answer that? Well, yeah, I think that's what they want to do. And I think they feel both market-wise and the way it fits in there between those two developments, it's a really pretty good transition between the two.
Other questions, commissioners?
Have they addressed the issue of the woodlands there in the central part of the property? Are they planning to keep any of that wooded area?
They are
Or is
not.
that all going to be
They are
demolished?
not, just the perimeter. We've committed to keep the perimeter
Right.
trees.
Nothing up through the middle?
One last question, Kevin. Are you fairly confident that the wetlands that staff identified is just an old farm pond?
We're sure of it. There is no wet, it's not wet now and hasn't been all year. Yeah.
Commissioners,
This
any,
year?
Right.
do we have any questions from anyone in the audience? Do we have any opposition to this request from anyone in the audience? No questions? Yes,
May I
ma'am.
add one more thing?
Yes, ma'am.
that-
Go ahead, go right
that
ahead.
Ben reminded me about. And on the motion page, you might notice it looks a little different. We
Yes.
tried to simplify it.
Mhm.
And basically, you can just read the motion and just reference the items that we stated in the staff report. And then if you have anything you don't want to include, you can just accept that instead of having to read all of the items.
Okay.
So we can give this a
Thank
try and see how it goes, and if you don't like it, we can go back to the old way or
Okay.
try something different. So,
All right, that sounds good. Everyone understand that on the motion page? If there are no other questions, then I will call for a motion. Thank you, sir.
Make a motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment together with conditioned upon the general development plan, docket number 2018-53Z County. Based upon the testimony and the documents presented in this public hearing, the proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its compliance with the objectives and action items presented in the staff report. I will refer to all items in compliance. Therefore, the proposed zoning map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further, I request that this motion include the summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Thank you, sir. We need a
Second.
second. Thank you.
Mr. Vitale,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Coppinger,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Warren,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Rich,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Volkert,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Balance, Chair Runner.
The motion carried. Our recommendation will be for approval. Thank you. The next item, docket number 2018-54ZBG, Providence Homes Kentucky LLC and Matthew Crabtree have filed an application to rezone a tract of land containing approximately 1.83 acres located at 3031 Nashville Road from heavy industrial to general business with a general development plan. We'll have the staff report. Ms. Ramsey.
Thank you, Chair Runner. We had a pre-application conference for this property you see outlined in yellow on July 10th of this year. The applicants are requesting to rezone from heavy industrial to general business in order to develop the property with a coffee, bakery, and sandwich shop. And so the property currently does operate as commercial, and they would continue that commercial use. As you can see around there, it's Nashville Road, so you got some commercial uses there. The KSP post right there, Hillview Heights right there, and then some industrial and vacant tracts in the area as well, and some single family. This property was actually originally zoned highway business and was rezoned in 1983 to heavy industrial, and which was called I-2 at the time, and it has remained that ever since. The property is designated as commercial on the future land use map. The proposed general business district is listed as a potentially compatible zone in the commercial flume designation, and this body should determine if the proposal is compatible with the surrounding area. The property is located within the urbanized area of Bowling Green. Site characteristic review indicates that there are adequate facilities and infrastructure available to support the proposed development. Site design has been addressed in the general development plan and development plan conditions in conjunction with the requirements of the zoning ordinance. Down there at the bottom, the points to consider that, as I've said, the proposal is consistent with the flume and commercial category. The proposed development complies with the majority of the site characteristics review criteria, and the proposed general development plan complies with the majority of the review criteria for site design and compatibility. And I will bring up their plan there so we can reference that. On page 2, the few things that I'll point out that the staff felt like it should be decided by you all is the compatibility with the surrounding area, LU 113. As far as LU 2, determining if the proposal is a high-quality development. LU 253, determine if this proposal is an opportunity for revitalization and redevelopment. Going down to the bottom there on page 2, HN1 and HN13, if the proposal is a suitable redevelopment project that will maintain or improve the existing character and pattern of development within the area. Right above that, as I believe we had in our last staff report, NCR 25 and 253, which deals with historic resources. This structure was built in 1949. The applicants are proposing to repurpose the existing structure for this restaurant use. On to page 3, a couple things that, well, I've already mentioned the house there in the site characteristics, or house, excuse me, structure. The site characteristics review portion there other than the structure being built in 1949, there's a portion of a sinkhole at the rear of the property, which the applicants have addressed that. And below that, in site design and compatibility review section, as you can see now on the aerial, this would not meet our landscaping standards today, but if this application is successful, then the landscaping would have to be installed as is required by the zoning ordinance. The proposed open space, the applicants have committed in their development plan conditions. They've addressed the open space, which I'll just go ahead and jump to those on page 4. So the development plan conditions, there are 12 of them. I'll go ahead and read through those real quick. Number 1, utilities will be located underground. Number 2 deals with prohibited uses. Number 3, hours of operation, 5 a.m. to 2 a.m. Number 4, the property will be developed with a maximum of 2 entrances, 2 existing entrances onto US 31W to be upgraded and coordinated with KYTC. Number 5, no building located on the property shall exceed 2 stories. Number 6, no building located on the property shall exceed 10,000 square feet. Number 7, the exterior of all buildings on the property shall be constructed of at least 50% brick, EIFS, stone masonry, or cementitious material. This shall exclude the rear building. Number 8, vinyl will not be allowed as an external facade on any buildings except in soffits. Number 9, lighting on the property will be down lighting not to exceed 16 feet in height, high intensity. Number 10, the owner agrees to set aside green space at back of lot and construct green space for resting biker, walker, jogger, etc. Owner is mindful of the sinkhole at the rear of the adjacent property and will follow all statutes pertaining to construction/development and usage around sinkholes. Number 11, any addition to the existing buildings or new buildings on the property will be constructed with a front facade facing toward Nashville Road. The existing structure currently faces Nashville Road. Number 12, all existing trees located on the perimeter of the development along the north, west, and south property lines, which have a caliper of 6 inches or greater and which are located within 10 feet of the property line, will be maintained during development and construction on the property. Additional flowering bushes will be added to the perimeter for enhanced buffering and beautification. So the staff summary below there, just to reiterate, proposal may be appropriate given the flume and the commercial category. The applicants, as I said, are proposing to repurpose the existing building, and a drive-through is also included, which I hadn't mentioned previously, but if you look on this plan, you'll see where they have denoted drive-through space and how traffic would be directed on the site to accommodate parking as well as the drive-through. This proposal complies with the majority of the criteria assessed in the review process, and it is up to you all to determine if it's compatible with the area. So that is all I have, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
A quick question. The plan seems to indicate that they're going to repurpose the existing building, and maybe there's a small addition in the back. Am I reading that right? To the existing building?
There is a small building existing at the back of the lot currently. The applicants may be able to speak more toward if they have other plans. I know if you look at their concept plan here,
seems to indicate a building just on the back of the existing building. The plan it seems to indicate some sort of structure on one of the exits. See those 2 exits there in the back of the building?
Could be a canopy, could be.
the applicants may be able to speak to that a little more definitely.
It looked like a really tight space. Is there room to enter and not go in the drive-through, or are you automatically in the drive-through lane to get back to the parking? On that concept plan, it was really hard to see that.
Yeah, it is kind of hard to see on here, and especially since it's hard to see on the screen, but the applicants may want to address that as well. I know they've got they've got 2 entrances there, one of which is on that far right side that looks like someone could turn in and go to the rest of the parking lot in the back, and then over right there on the left, the exit next to the entrance for the drive-through. But the applicants may be able to, they may want to address your question more specifically.
Questions? We hear from the applicant? Nothing else? Then we'll hear from the applicant. Thank you. Yes, the applicant, please. If you'd state your name and address for us, please.
I'm Liz Nelson. I'm with Providence Homes, and I'm one of the owners of the property.
Swear to tell the truth before this commission. Yes. Would you pull that mic down a little closer? Thank you.
Short.
I did not say that, no. And I believe you have a couple of questions, if, yes.
On the entrance, do you see what I'm talking about? Is there two entrances there? Are they far enough apart that's not going to cause a backup area?
If you look on the right, there's actually, the drive-through is actually on our property.
Okay, will you go?
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
If you look on the right of the property, there's actually enough room to have a driveway and a second entrance. But we also have access to, I believe, I'd have to go check, but I believe it's like a 60-foot easement there. There's actually some storage buildings back there, and that's their access or right-of-way to that. And so we have the right to use that as well. In the landscaping plan and in our original concept, we were hoping to put the drive-through on our property, and then we would have liked to create some sort of medians with some beautiful landscaping and that kind of thing. And then to get to the back, we would use the easement to the back that we have access to.
You have an easement agreement already?
Yes, we do.
In place? Okay,
Yes,
'cause I
ma'am.
didn't see that in the paperwork.
The easement is noted on the concept plan. It's just hard to read if you turn it sideways. It's kind of the small note that's down here that delineates that easement.
And so that easement is where this second entrance is depicted No?
Sir. On the left side of the property, we also, according to the highway department, have another entrance or exit there. And so we have denoted to keep all traffic going one way around the building, just for flow and easeability and understandment, of everybody. So we were going to enter on the right side, and everybody will exit on our second entrance on the left.
Commissioners, do you have any other questions? Did you have anything that you would like to add from the staff report?
Somebody had asked about the X, and that is going to be, our purpose of it is to renovate the existing building. It was built in the 50s, I believe. It has a lot of character to it. And so we were just going to add additional patio in the back and put the matching garage doors on the front and also have one on the back that could be raised up for outside seating and such. So that was what the X was.
Other questions? Do we have any questions from anyone in the audience concerning this application? Yes, sir. If you'll come forward, we'll get your name, swear you in, and let you ask your question. Your name and address, please.
My name's Joe Davis, and my address is 817 Cumberland Ridge Way, Bowling Green.
Swear to tell the truth.
I do.
Yes, if you go ahead and ask your question.
My questions mainly center around the easement we're talking about. We do own the property next door, and we share that easement with the property that Ms. Nelson is developing. It's a 30-foot easement. And one of the reasons for my question is we've had issues with past lessors of the property in terms of using the easement for parking. So I'm just interested to hear how the developer plans to keep the traffic moving through that easement so that we can have egress at all times. Our employees park just to the right of where their far right entrance is. So they need to back out of their parking spots, which are on our property, into the easement to egress. So that's maybe question number one, just some information on that. Question number two would be I'll call it an alley behind our property and Overholt. We have a little concern, not major, but about traffic buildup coming through that alley to any other facility. Now that,
Does that show on the aerial? Can you, because I don't see, maybe we can get a better look of where.
To go back to the, you can see where it goes all the way out to
Board's building, but I
Dishman.
don't see the alley.
I don't know what.
I think, are you talking the?
right there.
Right
Yes.
there, okay.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Oh, all right, okay. It doesn't actually cross her property or that, okay.
Mr. Davis, when they back out from work, how do they come out? Do they come out onto Nashville Road? Do they go around your building? How do they come out of there?
A multitude of ways. They back out and then go forward, and some of them use that alley, I would imagine, to get to Nashville Road. Some of them, when the easement area is clear, they have plenty of room to back out and then go back to Nashville Road. And like I say, there's plenty of room to do all that when there isn't anything in the easement area, which, as I understand the easement restrictions, it is an egress and access easement. So it should be obviously clear for both our properties. And
They just have a one-way arrow going back toward the
Right.
back of the building, and that's what I wanted to know, if your people are going to use that same way to go just straight out to the alley and back.
our people would back up into the easement. But it wouldn't interfere with them. It shouldn't necessarily. So,
Davis, the
yes.
surveyor, Barry Claypool, provided a plat, and in connection with this application, and he described on that plat a 30-foot perpetual exclusive easement for access, egress, and ingress as described in book 524, page 519. That's all we have, is that description. The use of that easement would be governed by that document. So you probably need to get a copy of that document. Both of you do need to understand the extent of that easement and whether it allows parking and whether it allows it to be blocked. I doubt it.
We researched that document when we purchased the property. And I can't necessarily speak to the accuracy of this, but it is my understanding there wouldn't be any parking allowed in the 30-foot easement. But just like it says, access, egress.
And I'm sure you can imagine that the use of the easement is probably beyond what this board is charged with doing tonight, but really ought to be something that you take a look at and make up your mind what the rights are for the parties using that easement, and then get with the owners of the adjoining property and see if you all can work out those terms. And if you can't, there are always other remedies available to you, probably none of which are acceptable. But there are other ways to get it cleared up.
So my main concern was just getting some comfort that the easement would be honored, that the traffic coming in would be moving traffic and not stationary traffic. Fortunately, the driveway coming in for the drive-through is not coming in on the easement. So,
And I can offer comfort.
yeah.
I think she's
we-
prepared to give you some
Yeah,
comfort.
give,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
th-
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
To give him some comfort, when we talked to the highway department as well as Barry Claypool, the reason that we set it up this way was a one-way going in is so that it's always moving. The drive-through is clearly on our property. In fact, we even have more room beyond that if we needed to be able to. And then we put the exit on the other side, so there would never be any issue or conjunction in easy flow on that easement. So if that helps any.
Yes.
Does that help? Did you have a second question?
I don't know that this applies to this hearing, but we have had previous issues with the lessors of that property in terms of parking on our property. There may be that temptation, since they have to go around to the back, and our property is maybe a little closer to the front door, I don't know.
Well,
But-
our front door will actually be in the back. So
Oh,
it'll be of no
okay.
benefit to them to park anywhere but in the back.
I like this more and more.
We're so glad, we're so glad you
Yeah.
came.
I think that answers my question. Do
Thank-
you have any others, John?
Thank
Thank
you,
you very
sir.
much.
It's good to be able to resolve some things and feel comfortable. Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Moore. I'll ask, any other questions for the applicant? Do we have anyone else in the audience with a question or
Is
concern?
there going to be a designated left-hand turns lane or anything into there
Nashville Road.
on Nashville Road? You
That
have
I
two
can't
entrances,
answer.
But
Yeah,
I don't see a middle lane to get into to turn in there.
Well, it would be just like the IGA on the corner or his business that's there. There is no designated lane. And when I spoke with the highway department, they didn't feel that our volume would necessarily need any of that. So they were fine with it.
Any other questions from anyone in the audience? Do we have any opposition to this request? No opposition? Commissioners, any other questions? I ask for a motion. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment together with condition upon the general development plan docket number 2018-54ZBG. Based upon the testimony and documents presented in the public hearing, the proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its compliance with the objectives and action items presented in the staff report, all. Therefore, the proposed zoning map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further, I request that this motion include the summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Thank you, sir. We need a second. Thank you.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Coppinger,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Rich,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Balance, Commissioner Clark, Commissioner Volkert, Commissioner Warren,
Ma'am.
Chairman Runner.
Yes, ma'am. The motion carried. Our recommendation will be for approval. Thank you. Thank you all. New business. I think we have a couple of items, Mr. Peterson.
Yes, there's just a couple of quick items here. So the first thing is just to mention the transit study. The MPO is doing a transit study. It's a $125,000 study. I just want to mention that here because all of that money will be flowing through our budget. There'll be zero net either way through our office. The match, that's grant money through the MPO. But the match $11,000 in match will come from WKU and $14,000 match will come from the city of Bowling Green. So if you see that flow through the budget, don't get too excited. It's just all passed through, and the net result will be zero at the end of this conclusion of the study. The other thing, I just want to take a quick minute just to show the new website. Since this is a short meeting, we can't let you go home too early. But this site is the result of a while of doing, I'm not sure what it's doing here, but let me hit refresh there. It's probably not going to work now. That's what dangerous technology, trying to do technology live. But the new site has been largely completed. We have all the information all still there. We've got extra stuff in there too, but it's been rearranged. But it is a combination of everything we do. We'll be adding more to it as time goes on. For instance, I'll just click on boards and then planning commission, and apologize, but I cannot pick the pictures that YouTube selects, what frame they show there. But there's the past meetings. So for instance, tonight's meeting, we will probably, assuming the disc gets made, will be loaded on the site the next day. So it's we have reruns now. So on through our YouTube channel that we've started, all the past meetings you can see is below there. And you keep scrolling down, there's our meeting schedules. And I want to show this table really quick, because when we first did the site, it was kind of jumbled, I guess. You couldn't tell which staff reports went with which meeting. We had some citizen feedback, so we went back and had them redesign this. And now each staff report here you see on the right-hand column matches with the agendas and the meeting dates. So we'll upload those as, for instance, we approved tonight's minutes, so we'll load that in for the October 8th meeting. And then this is also all searchable. So you can search by text too. If maybe you didn't know that it was McLellan Road, but you might know the subdivision name. You can search by that and find things that way too. So it's a lot more usable. And then, of course, our other information's there. We have that for each board that we have. I won't go through all of those, obviously. Development review, another section we have created. We expect to be adding to this as time goes along. We'll probably start publishing, or we will start publishing the things you see, like the site development plans and the subdivision plans. We'll start posting those there and add to that as time goes along, and hopefully become a little more technology savvy. This is all mobile friendly as well. So 60% of all internet traffic or more now is done with mobile devices. So this is all mobile phone friendly. We have our other typical things, the applications and fees, fee schedules, all of our checklists, all of that stuff is now in that form. Regulations and documents, so if you're looking for zoning ordinance, for example, or the comprehensive plan, all of that is in the regulations and documents section. We'll add, we've still got to add our audits and budgets and stuff back in there. We will do that as soon as we can. And then, of course, about is just staff and all of that. And then we have our contact page. Then across the top here, our GIS map is still there. A lot of people use that, so that is there. You click on that, it'll bring up that. Our bike ped is our formerly known as Greenways bike ped, and if you haven't seen the new Bike Walk BG initiative that has started yet, you'll start seeing more of that. But this is where all of our information is for Greenways or the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, now through the MPO, the Adopt a Trail program, all of the documents associated with that. So comfort ride maps, again, our social media tie-ins there. So that is our Facebook feeds for both the Greenways or the Bike Ped, Bike Walk BG stuff, as well as the Planning Commission feeds from Facebook. The safety videos, that is something that the MPO did about a year and a half ago, but those are on there too. They're public service announcements, and watching football this Sunday, and I saw one of them, and so it was interesting to see that. WNKY, I think, are airing those for us, but it's basically safety tips, and then you can see our meetings and minutes from Greenways as well, or the BPAC, Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. MPO similar, so we have the MPO site that we included as all-encompassing, carrying out the same themes, the new logos there. All the information that is associated with MPO is also on the site, all the documents, everything that has to do with our Metropolitan Planning Organization, ARM, all the documents that go with that, resources, all of that information is there. And then the last thing I wanted to show was the newsletter. So this is a different concept. We kind of started it again, and then we did print. Well, now it's kind of all electronic. So we will you start seeing links to this page here. And so this is basically the same content we've been doing, but you can see this will be the most recent articles, the most recent newsletter, and you'll be able to, if you're on a phone, swipe right or left to get to the older stuff or the newer stuff. And then the past archives and newsletters are still there at the bottom. And I'll just click on our numbers. That's one that everybody's usually interested in. The tables that we do showing how many multifamily, single-family lots, those types of things. So you click on that and you'll get the actual article, and then there's our tables. So still a work in progress, but I just wanted to kind of show that off. It does a little bit of money is spent on that, but it's very. Once you figure out where we've put everything, it's easier to use, easier to navigate, and now mobile friendly. And then we're really using this platform to push more information out and be more open and transparent government with this. So more to come.
Looks great, it does.
That's all I have. Thank you.
That's all, are you sure?
That's
We'll
all
give you
unless
we'll
you got
give you a
questions.
bonus, one more thing?
Yeah.
Not one more thing?
New guy starts Monday, Jacob Merriman. He's our eventual Chuck Phillips replacement. We have Chuck still till the end of this year, but he will start Monday, and so we're happy to have him on board. So.
Great. Commissioners, anything else? Nothing? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all.
Good job, Ben.